Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update. I'm your host for today's program, Paul Demain. Many of the stories and information found here can be found at our website at www.indiancountrynews.com. Here are some of the news articles from the day from the Associated Press and other Native American news sources. Seneca Nation President Barry Snyder Sr. said he's willing to reconsider plans to mobilize emergency response personnel and collect tolls on the New York State Thruway after receiving a letter from Governor David Paterson expressing a willingness to talk. The state and the Western New York tribe are at odds over a law scheduled to take effect during February that would tax cigarettes sold by reservation smoke shops to non-Indian customers. On Sunday, even as 150 Seneca members and supporters protested near a thruway overpass on the Cattaraugus Reservation, Snyder said he was hopeful Seneca businesses would continue to operate while the state and the tribe worked to hash out their differences. Paterson, in need of revenue while facing a gaping budget deficit in New York, signed the law in December. That provoked a heated response from the Senecas, who said that it would violate historic treaties, shielding them from state taxation while disrupting their $313 million retail sector and the 1,000 jobs that it supports. Earlier this month, the tribal council authorized Snyder to spend $1 million to hire emergency response personnel and to ask President Obama for federal troops to protect the Seneca people against any potential action by the state of New York. A federal judge ruled last week that a massive gold mine project could proceed in northeast Nevada despite a bid by a Western tribe and conservationists to block it on religious and environmental grounds. U.S. District Judge Larry Hicks ruled there's not enough evidence to force Bar Rick Gold Corporation to postpone digging a 2,000-foot deep open pit at the Cortez mine on Mount Tenabo until a trial is held on the merits of the project. The Great Basin Resource Watch and the Western Shoshone claim the U.S. Bureau of Land Management's review of the Toronto-based company's proposed mine ignores some of the environmental effects and disregards tribal leaders' concerns it would destroy a sacred landmark. Hicks, who took more than an hour to explain his ruling from the bench, said a preliminary injunction like the one the plaintiffs wanted is an extraordinary remedy taken only when there is a likelihood they will prevail at trial. Police seized more than $400,000 worth of jewelry designed by former U.S. Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell in a catch of items found during the arrest of a man who was allegedly to have been planning a coin truck heist, authorities said yesterday in Las Vegas, Nevada. Brent Clinton Coombs, 28, was arrested January 8th at a Las Vegas home where investigators said they also found guns, ammunition, and about $25,000 worth of additional merchandise believed to have been stolen during other robberies in Colorado and Farmington, New Mexico. Police said they believe that the Campbell jewelry was stolen in a November 17th robbery at a gallery in Durango, Colorado. More than 60 pieces of jewelry created by the former senator from Colorado were stolen from his daughter's Sorrel Sky Gallery. Officials said the American Indian-style pieces were stamped with the senator's name and had custom serial numbers, making them easily recognizable as having been made by Campbell. Campbell served as a Republican in the Senate from 1993 to the year 2005. Coombs is scheduled for a March 18th court appearance. Navajo Nation Council Speaker Lawrence Morgan has won a fourth term to the post. Morgan's selection by tribal lawmakers this week means he'll preside over the tribal council and the legislative branch for another 2 years at the Navajo Nation. Morgan and Fort Defiance delegate Harold Wanaka were the top two vote-getters among three candidates, forcing a vote-off between the two. Morgan had pressed for continuity in leadership and said he would advocate for renewable energy, continue to address government reform, and make Navajo veterans and youth a top priority on his agenda. Change is coming to the Assembly of First Nations of Canada. The Assembly of First Nations will hold a press conference on February 3rd to announce some major changes in the organizational goals. The news release says the AFN will champion the right of First Nations to determine their own citizenship, represent the interest of all First Nations citizens wherever they live, and focus on economic prosperity for all its constituents. If you happen to be in the area, that press conference will be held at the National Press Theatre at 150 Ottawa in Ontario, Canada on Tuesday, February 3rd, starting at 11 a.m. The Buffalo and Cranberry Tonka Bar, made by a native-owned company in Kyle, South Dakota, has received an Editor's Choice Award from the national magazine, The Gourmet Retailer. The publication focuses on the gourmet and specialty foods industry. Native American Natural Foods is based on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota and launched the all-natural bar in 2007. It's now available at about 1,500 retail locations and online throughout the United States and Canada. The Tonka Bar is a modern version of the traditional Lakota food called wasna. Bison meat is high in protein and low in cholesterol. The cranberries add antioxidants and a sweet, natural flavor to the product. According to Canada's National Aboriginal News publication Windspeaker, the world may be in an economic crisis, but that didn't deter Aboriginal leaders last fall who embarked on a trade mission to China to sell British Columbia as a hot destination for investment. On the agenda as well for the First Nations representatives was to remind all involved that Canada's Aboriginal people have a role to play in any development that takes place in their territories, a fact that cannot be overlooked. We're talking to the business people in China to let them know they should be aware of the legal rights of First Nations and that in order for them to partner and invest in British Columbia, they should talk to First Nations, said Grand Chief Edward John of the First Nations Summit. Still, the main message on the trade mission was that Canada was very much available and open for business. If you're headed out on the powwow circuit this weekend, we've got a couple powwows coming up, some of them that start this evening. The Dakota Nation Winterfest Wasipi is being held starting this evening, January 30th, running through February 1st at the Keystone Center in Brandon, Manitoba. There's also the American Indian Expo, and I think there's a powwow during part of this time period. It runs from January 30th through February 15th at the Expo Center in Tucson, Arizona. Check them out. There's got to be some music and dance going on down that way. There's also the 13th Winter Gathering Powwow, January 31st at the Community Building in Miami, Oklahoma. And lastly, what we have on our agenda here is the 10th Annual Alabama Coushatta Children's Powwow. That's being held January 31st at the Multi-Purpose Center in Livingston, Texas. And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank our underwriters for helping us with this broadcast. Tune in and tune in often as we provide the news here. We're glad that you can join with us.